Yeah, let's go ahead and start, I guess, at this point. There he is, just in time. Next to John down there. Yeah, go ahead.
All right, good evening, everyone. We're going to start the meeting for the Pinole Planning Commissioning meeting.
for Monday, May 22nd, 2023. There are various ways to watch the meeting. One is in person at the Pinole City Council Chambers at 2131 Pear Street or live on Channel 26. Also video stream it live at the city's website at www.ci.pinole.ca.us. You may also Zoom video conference at https://us.j/j.us/86505375301, or the Zoom webinar ID is 86505375301. And during the public comment, if you wish, use the raising hand function if you wish to speak. Alternatively, if you wish to phone in, you can reach us at 1-669-900-6833 or 1-253-215-8782 or 1-346-248-7799. Speakers will need to provide their name and city of residence, although providing this is not required for participation. Each speaker will be afforded up to 3 minutes to speak. Speakers will be muted until their opportunity to provide public comment. You may also submit written comments to the planning staff before the meeting via email to dhanum@ci.pinole.ca.us. Please include your full name, city of residence, and agenda item you are commenting on. We have a quorum. My name is Adam Benzuli, and I will be the chair for the part of this evening's meeting. I now call the meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Everyone, please. Before we begin, we'd like to do our land acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge the Ohlone people, who are the traditional custodians of this land. We pay our respects to the Ohlone elders, past, present, and future, who call this place Ohlone land, the land that Pinole sits upon, their home. We are proud to continue their tradition of coming together and growing as a community. We thank the Ohlone community for their stewardship and support, and we look forward to strengthening our ties as we continue our relationship of mutual respect and understanding. Planning Manager Hannum, please do roll call.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Sandoval.
Present.
Commissioner Lamb Julian.
Present.
Commissioner Bender.
Present.
Commissioner Martinez is absent. He's excused tonight. Commissioner Benuelos.
Here.
Vice Chair Menes.
Here.
Chair Benzuli.
Here.
The records show that we have 6 out of 7 members. We have a quorum and we can take action on items tonight.
The next item on the agenda is C, citizens to be heard. The public may address the Planning Commission on items that are within its jurisdiction and not otherwise listed on the agenda. Planning commissioners may discuss the matter brought to their attention, but by state law, action must be deferred to a future meeting. Time allowed is 5 minutes each. We have one public speaker tonight. We have Nels DeLander, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. You have 5 minutes to speak once you get to the podium.
Good afternoon. My name is Nels DeLander. I'm a field representative for the NorCal Carpenters Union. I speak on behalf of the working class construction workers of this community. It is important for any future projects have area standards. By area standards, I mean prevailing wage, healthcare, local hire, and skilled apprentices. Workers need to be paid prevailing wage so they can make enough money to take care of their families, especially with the cost of living in the Bay Area increasing with inflation as time goes on. They also should have healthcare for workers on projects just in case someone gets hurt. Nobody should be paying for injuries due to getting hurt by accidents that happen on the job sites. We should also include local hire. We want workers to be able to work in their own communities so they can get back to their families and be able to raise their children. Too many workers out there driving for hours to get home. It's not only hurts the time with their families, but adds to more traffic on the roads. We should also include apprentices on future projects from apprenticeships that teach professionalism on the trades. Having trade apprentices makes job sites safer, produces quality work. Job sites are on budget and on time. All we're saying is we want all future projects to be safe, workers to be taken care of, and have successful projects for this community can utilize and enjoy. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Okay, Chair. We also have one more hand raised online as well.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Okay, this is from the person with phone number ending in 5748. And when you're ready, you can unmute yourself. Please press *6.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, yes, my name's Anthony, and I had a few items for the, to ask questions about directly or indirectly related to the, city of Pinole. I was just curious, what the rules, regulations, or codes are regarding putting up poster banners, in our city. Case in point, recently over the last few weeks, I've noticed over half a dozen different banners all over the city being posted in our city, Pinole, by the city of Hercules to promote their 4th of July program. You know, like a big 4th of July festival, and they're big bright banners, and they're in spots that maybe we would want to put our banners up for the city of Pinole. I asked someone, they told me that the city is supposed to have, there's no permitting involved, but there's a 30-day notice period that the banners cannot go up for more than 30 days and only, or supposedly before, only before 30 days of the event. So they're violating one or two of those city codes or ordinances in that regard, because they've been up for almost a month now, and it's not until 4th of July. And are we promoting Hercules? Who gave them permission to put those banners up over the city by the Garden Club cyclone fence below Jack in the Box and the I-80 entrance, down in the city of Pinole on our main community corner, cyclone fence, and a few other places. We already, you know, donated close to either side of $75,000 last year when we gave the city of Hercules our 4th of July fireworks show money so they could have the biggest, best fireworks show in history. And I know we've got certain people on the city council and or mayor that are buddy up with the city of Hercules. So we need to ask the city council, mayor, public works director, anybody, planning manager, who gave city manager, public works manager, who gave them carte blanche to post up those posters over the city. They need to either take them down or somebody should take them down, because a lot of the citizens and community are upset about that. They should be worried about promoting our own city and our own businesses, not farming out Pinoleans to go to Hercules on the big 4th of July weekend. Secondly, I wanted to know what's happening in the Safeway Tara Hills project with the Kroger negotiations and buyout. Rumor is they may or may not get new permitting to build out that Safeway gas station center on Tara Hills I-80 APN. No updates in the last 2 meetings were given by Mr. Hannum or anybody from the city with regard to the progress or lack of progress on that important property there. Maybe we should go back and look at putting housing there if Safeway's not going to put a new store there. with or without the gas station. And also, we still have the light outages up and down Pinole Valley Road, on the center medium strip. Over half a dozen light outages. Half of them are because the poles are missing. The other half are just, they needed to, screw in the light bulb. And we should have one or two poles ordered by now, because it's been over a year since those 3 or 4 poles have been knocked down on the medium strip. And we're not going to have a hodgepodge of different kinds of metal, aluminum, parking lot poles in the heart of our city. We don't want that. And we heard rumor that that's what the city is thinking of doing, Mr. Mishra or somebody else. I think they should put better signage around those poles with markers and reflectors, and maybe move the poles a little back on the medium strip or forward, but not to take half of them down or leave half of them empty, because the streets are dark. And there's also 3 light outages over there that have been reported before several times on San Pablo Avenue
Mr.
by
Tony,
the old Pinole
Yeah.
Dog Shelter.
Mr. Tony, can you please start wrapping it up? Yeah.
Yeah, and so I would just recommend that the city put out at least one person per month or every other month to patrol the city at night to take note of what's going on at night.
Okay.
But none of the employees are doing that, because none of them probably live in Pinole, including all the directors and managers. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tony. Thank you for your comments. As far as the poster banner, I would think that's part of the Pinole Municipal Code as far as postings.
Yeah, we'll be working with code enforcement on that.
Okay.
Yeah, they do need at least a temporary sign permit, I think, for banners. They're gonna be placed around town, that type of stuff, so I'll have to take a look at that.
Is there an update on the Safeway?
I was planning on giving that at
Okay,
the staff report later on in the meeting.
Justin, is there any more citizens to be heard?
No, there are no more hands up at this time.
Great, thank you. The next item on the agenda is the meeting minutes from May 8th, 2023. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Commissioner Menace?
Yeah, I've just got a minor question. At some points in the minutes, it says vice chairperson for the vice chairperson, and other points it says commissioner. Is it just usually commissioner noted for vice chairperson, except when it's important to note it, or is it usually vice chairperson that's noted? Because, like, for example, on page 1, you've got Vice Chairperson Martinez, and on, say, page 6, you've got Commissioner Menace there. So I just know whether that's just the norm of how it's written or what. So I figured I'd ask.
Yeah, we can, well, it should be vice chair minutes. So page 6, by that point, you were appointed as a vice chair, so we'll make that change in the minutes.
Okay, yeah, there's a few other points in the minutes as well. I just had that, just one area where I bugged it.
Yeah, we'll catch that.
Was there anything else, Commissioner Menace?
No, that was it.
Anybody else have any questions or comment on the meeting minutes?
I just have 2. On page 14, line 26. There is the sentence, and it was I was the one who made it. And I said, with the trees and existing homes, the project would not be clearly visible and would eventually be, the word should there inserted should be partially screened.
Sorry, what page and line item was that again?
That was on page 14. It was line 26. Said would eventually be partially screened. And then the second was actually on page 8, it was line 44. And it talks about, it said, although one building had 225 square feet of office space, which the others did not. I think buildings 1 and 2 had a total of 5,000 square feet of office space each. Unless maybe this was a reference to, there may have been an earlier plan, which was not reviewed that night.
No, it needs to be changed to 2,500
2,500 per
building.
building.
Yes. Well, there's 2,500 square feet per building of office space, and there's 2,500 of mezzanine.
Of
level.
mezzanine.
So we count that as, 5,000 square feet, but when we talk about just the office space, we'll just put 2,500.
Yeah, okay. And that's it, Chair.
Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the minutes, the comments of updating Commissioners Menace to actually Vice Chair Menace, as well as the two amendments on page 14, line 26, and page 8, line 44 for Commissioner Bender's edits?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
The planning manager had him do a quick roll call.
Sure. Commissioner Sandoval,
Yes.
Commissioner Lamb Julian,
Yes.
Commissioner Bender,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Walos,
I will abstain since I wasn't.
Vice Chair Menace,
Yes.
Chair Benzuli.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0-1.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is public hearings. We have one item tonight. It is item number 1, the minor subdivision PL 23-0001 and MS 652-23 at 2801 Pinole Valley Road lot split. Request is a consideration of a lot split request to modify lot lines on the approximately 1.7 acre parcel to split the existing parcel into two parcels of approximately 0.27 acres and 1.46 acres. The project qualifies for a CEQA exemption under CEQA guidelines section 15315. The applicant is Brian Beniquid, Pinole Valley Partners LLC, 2801 Pinole Valley Road, Pinole, California, 94564. The location is 2801 Pinole Valley Road, APN number 360-010-029. Mr. Shu, do you have a presentation?
Yes, I wonder if the PowerPoint can be brought up, but in the meantime, I could just get started. So the application before you tonight, a different PowerPoint, but the application before you tonight is a lot split proposal at 2801 Pinole Valley Road. The property owner and applicant, Brian Beniquid, is here. The owner is Pinole Valley Partners, in which Brian is the lead on that. So the proposal is a lot split at the existing parcel, which is a 1.74 acre parcel. The proposal is to divide the lot into a 0.7 acre parcel at the front of the property and encompassing much of the parking lot. And with the second parcel being a 1.46 acre parcel for the remaining part of the property, which contains the existing building and also where proposed development would occur. And since we don't have the slides up, I could just briefly describe some of the general plan and zoning designations for the parcel and the surrounding area. So as you might be aware, this parcel is located at 2801 Pinole Valley Road, which is opposite the Pinole Valley Shopping Center and also Pinole Depot Plaza, small shopping center as well. That's to the west. To the east is Westmont of Pinole, senior living. North of that is the Arco gas station. South, we have the 7-Eleven building, as well as a Pinole Valley Community Church. So those are the surrounding areas. The parcel itself has a general plan designation of service sub area, SSA, the intent of which is to maintain and enhance existing land uses while providing land use flexibility and incentives to encourage new private investments and additional development. And further, each of the SSA areas have their own sub area designations as well. This is in the Pinole Valley Road Corridor SSA. And the further description is that it's intended to maintain and increase existing employment opportunities and encourage new housing opportunities while accommodating commercial uses that serve residents through mixed use development. Oh, thank you. The slide's up. In addition to the general plan designation, there is also a specific, it's also in the specific plan area, specifically the Pinole Valley Road Corridor. So this has the SSA designation as well. It's the service sub area within that corridor. So it lines up with the general plan designation as well. the specific zoning for it is OPMU, which is Office Professional Mixed Use. And under the specific plan, some of the intentions for the OPMU is to allow for development of larger office buildings and business parks with supporting retail and service uses. And the specific plan further goes on to list what are the allowable or conditionally allowable uses in the area. So as mentioned, this is an existing developed site. There is a 25,161 square foot commercial building on the site that you might be familiar with. So there are existing office uses within the building as well as other commercial uses. There's a donut shop in there as well, other personal services. So a variety of uses currently in that building. For future development that's being proposed. This was reviewed last year. So the proposal brought forth at that time and approved was for an office addition at the back of that existing building, which would consist of a, can we go back to the previous slide? Thank you. Which would consist of a 4-story addition to the back of the building for further office space. This would be an additional 17,280 square feet. As well as a 29-unit 5-story apartment at the southeast corner of that property. So infill development on that existing site. And then the existing parking on site would also be redesigned as well to accommodate that development, as well as a landscape refresh and other improvements such as pedestrian accessibility from Pinole Valley Road. So there are new ADA connections from the sidewalk to the building and various buildings on site. So that was from the previous approved development. So if we go to the next slide. So in the next step of the process, the applicant is working on their design drawings, construction details to be submitted to the Community Development Department, as well as the Public Works Department for review of construction and ensuring that their development would meet building code standards and other standards, as well as implementing their conditions of approval. So as the applicant is working through that process, they're also working with their construction lenders at this time. And the lender recommended the owner explore the option of a lot split on the lot, the purpose of which, and the applicant and owner would be able to explain further as well if you have additional questions later, is to be able to isolate debts and existing loans on one of the parcel and allow for the other parcel to be free of debt. Which would allow them to facilitate development on the other parcel as well. So lot split proposals, as you see on the screen, involve a subdivision of the existing lot. We've mentioned the lot sizes before. The applicant's proposing to create parcel A, which is 0.72 acres or approximately 11,918 square feet. Encompassing most of the parking area in front, and the remaining parcel B, would be 63,764 square feet. So lot split applications are reviewed by Planning Commission in the city of Pinole. So you have the ability to decide on the approval of the application. So under Title 16, which governs subdivisions in Pinole, it describes some considerations that the Planning Commission can make in their determination. Some of which is whether the lot split would be in conformity with the law and the municipal code chapter, whether the size and shape of the proposed lots is in general conformance with city requirements, and whether the proposed lots will have proper and sufficient access to a public street. So if we could go to the next slide. So staff took a look at the proposal. There are some applicable standards for this specific zoning district and this area in particular. Actually, there aren't many standards for this specific zoning district, actually, which is what we found in our review of the code. The OPMU district does not identify specific minimum lot sizes under Chapter 1724, which is development standards by zoning districts. So there are no specific minimum lot sizes within the zoning portion of the code, and the general or specific plan also doesn't establish specific minimum lot sizes either. Another portion of the code we looked at is the subdivision section, which is Title 16, which does provide some minimum lot size standards. And these are the smallest sizes and frontages that would be applicable to a subdivision in Pinole for this area at least. So minimum lot sizes would be 6,000 square feet and a 60-foot frontage. Frontage is facing the street. So this would apply to relatively flat parcels. So parcels where no more than 30% of the lot has a 10% or greater slope, which would apply to the parcel. And as we mentioned, one of the considerations is for lots to have access to a public street. So one of the considerations is for both parcels to still be able to access Pinole Valley Road, both in its existing configuration and also following future development. So one of the proposals that staff included in the conditions of approval is for a recordation of a reciprocal access and parking agreement or easement between the two parcels. And this would run with the parcel, run with the land, to maintain that between the two parcels. They'll maintain free circulation and shared parking between the new parcels. So as if the lot was still joined together, even if they're separate lots, people would be able to move and park freely between the two parcels. Next slide, please. And in another consideration for, besides, what would be applicable in the Pinole Code, we also considered, what's applicable in the law as well. So as mentioned last week, the Subdivision Map Act also establishes certain standards for consideration of new parcel maps. And Subdivision Map Act identifies a few items, 7 items, for which a parcel map can be denied. So I can identify the items here and kind of go over like what we've considered as well. So for item A and B in the Subdivision Map Act, this is section 66474. It describes some of the potential denial points as the proposed map is not consistent with the general and specific plans as specified in section 65451, and that the design or improvement of the proposed subdivision is not consistent with the applicable general plan and specific plans. So just from staff's review, staff believes that the subdivision does not create any new changes to the existing or proposed land uses or improvements, what's existing or what would otherwise be approved. So because there's no proposed changes and it's a modification of lot lines, it wouldn't be inconsistent with a general plan and specific plan. Likewise, the development has met like minimum lot sizes established in the zoning code as well. So for the 2 points C and D in the Subdivision Map Act, for points of denial that the site is not physically suitable for the type of development, or that the site is not physically suitable for the proposed density of development. Staff has determined that since the proposed subdivision doesn't propose any new development, there would be no physical change and affect the physical suitability of the site. For points E and F, they involve that the design and subdivision or proposed improvements are likely to cause substantial environmental damage or substantially and avoidably injure fish or wildlife or their habitats, or that the design of the subdivision or type of improvements is likely to cause serious public health problems. So likewise, along the same similar thought, that the subdivision doesn't propose any new designs or improvements that could damage wildlife habitats or public health. And finally, the last point to consider a denial is that the design of the subdivision or the type of the improvements will conflict with easements acquired by the public at large for access through or use of the property within the proposed subdivision. In this connection, the governing body may approve a map if it finds that alternative easements for access or use will be provided, and that the subsection shall apply only to easements of record or to easements established by judgment of a court or competent jurisdiction, and no authority is hereby granted to a legislative body to determine that the public at large has acquired easements for access through or use of the property within the subdivision. Since there are no public access easements through the property, this would not apply. There's no direct conflict with the public access easement. As conditioned, the project would actually record a reciprocal access agreement to ensure more free-flowing use between the two lots in terms of circulation as well as parking. So if we could go to the next slide. So the environmental review for this project consists of a categorical exemption. CEQA establishes various categories of environmental review. Certain projects are exempt, and this would be one of those. So this is categorically exempt under section 15315 of the state CEQA guidelines, which talks about minor land divisions in class 15. If we could go to the next slide. So staff's recommendation is to adopt resolution 23-05, approving the subdivision of the one lot, 2801 Pinole Valley Road, into two parcels. So this is application number 23-001 and MS 652-23. So that concludes the presentation, and staff is available for any questions, and the applicant is here as well.
Thank you for your presentation. We'll go, if the commission has any questions for staff, I'll start with Commissioner Bender on my right.
I did have a question, but it was actually answered in the staff report. So no further questions from me.
Commissioner Benuelos.
Yeah, I have several questions. Can staff, can you explain where it says proposed reciprocal easement for parking and access over existing parking lot? And there's 2 arrows pointing to the parcel A and one the parcel B. Can you kind of explain what that means, reciprocal easement?
Yeah, so I think the arrows are just identifying the two parcels where the reciprocal access agreement would be. So the agreement would be a text that would be drafted by the applicant, and then we'll review it once they draft it up, ensuring that both of the parcels would be able to share parking, share circulation between the two properties. So it's essentially sort of like a restriction or restriction connected to this property to ensure that there is free use of parking between the two parcels.
Okay, and are there be something similar for the existing little piece of easement that kind of, I guess that feeds off of the 7-Eleven, right? The ingress and egress easement to city of Pinole. How does that work with that?
So this would be a new reciprocal access agreement. So it'll be new text drafted just specifically for circulation between parcels A and B and parking between parcels A and B.
Mm-hmm. But isn't that little corner there I guess it would be parcel B, I suppose, huh?
Yeah.
So don't you have to do something there to kind of justify that as well?
That would be a separate, that should be something that's already recorded with the parcel. So recording the new reciprocal access agreement wouldn't affect that existing easement on site.
So it recognizes it then?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. You were talking about on parcel, well, I guess I'm thinking of parcel A, it's decent enough size lot. My question when it sounds like today that it's maintained to be parking.
Yeah.
So what keeps them from deciding, in a year but we're going to build a building there now?
Yeah. If any new development application comes in, especially for commercial development, it'll come back to planning commission as well. We also included a condition in the conditions of approval saying that if there's any net reduction in parking between the two parcels, it'll also be brought to city staff so we can determine what the applicable process is. But any new development would be brought to planning commission for review.
Okay. So within parcel B and the new parking based on the development that we already approved and all that, is there enough parking in there to support both the apartments and that office building, existing office building? Or would they need to have that parcel A to maintain the required parking for the office building?
They would need to maintain it since the parking for that proposed development encompasses the whole site. So what the available parking resources were. So in requiring that reciprocal access agreement, that's to help preserve the parking and the continued use throughout the site as well.
Okay. That's it for me for right now.
Vice Chair Menace, do you have any questions?
Sure. I guess one question sort of following on from Commissioner Banuelos's question with regards to potential future uses of the site. If the development for effectively speaking parcel B, because parcel A basically isn't going to be redeveloped now, if I'm understanding all these charts right, it's just going to be a place where all the loads get dumped onto and then nothing really changes with it. But it seems like it's still tied to parcel B because if something changes with it, it would change all of the ongoing permitting and whatnot for the redevelopment of that site. So I guess my question is, do the requirements for parcel B effectively speaking act as a de facto, I suppose, limit on what can be done with parcel A, or can whoever, assuming that there's a transfer of control of parcel A in the future or whatever, could whoever came into control of parcel A just ignore the requirements for parcel B?
They would still need to consider that as a condition. There is a specification that be no net reduction of parking between the two parcels. So if there would be any like new development that reduced the number of parking spaces, that would, be further reviewed as well, and that would require a separate development proposal. So if there's any net change in parking and net change in just circulation, that would be brought back for review.
In addition, excuse me, in addition, if the property fell into separate hands, the recorded reciprocal easement would prevent that from occurring.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. My second question was with regards, going back to page. So page 4 of the staff report, sort of the project overview. And it says with the lot spread, the current first loan of the property is segregated on one of the lots, while allowing the second lot to be one free and clear of any debt. This will provide opportunity for a newly created lot to receive a better primary construction loan. So I guess I'm just curious as to how that works legally. Is it basically saying all the old debt now belongs to this parking lot? And if anything were to happen with that debt, it only applies to the parking lot and not the buildings? I'm just a bit confused about how all that works and whether that's typically done and so on, because it seems strange the way it's described.
Yeah, and we do have the applicant here as well, so he could kind of explain his conversations with his lender, but I think essentially he could isolate the loans on its.
I think we'll get through all the staff comments,
Yeah.
questions first.
Right. Yeah, I thought maybe the city attorney Mogg might have a comment on that.
I would just note that, the financing itself is, not something that's relevant for the planning commission's determination, but just answer your question. Presumably the deed of trust for the existing loans will be only on that parcel and will be reconveyed from the other parcel. So it's only attached to one of the parcels, and the other parcel doesn't have that burden recorded on it. The deed of trust securing the financing, but the applicant will be able to speak to that more.
All right, and I think that was all my questions for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Lamb Julian, any questions or comments for the staff?
Hey, regarding the 29 unit proposed apartment building, just thinking back to the housing elements, how it ties in, would the applicants be responsible for making sure that these apartments are affordable, and kind of the breakdown of what their ideal candidate is, meaning how they're going to go ahead and rent these out? And also regarding the commercial retail spaces, as well as just making sure that we are giving small businesses a fighting chance to be able to participate in this as well, and how that ties in. I don't know if that goes to the applicant or Mr. Mogg or Mr. Chastain.
I think some of those questions actually addressed when the project came upon the planning commission last year, I think. So at this point, I think we're just looking at the lot split question, I believe.
And Chair, that is correct, but just for commissioners' information, there was a proposal when this was approved for a certain number of affordable housing units that was consistent with the city's requirements, and a agreement, recorded deed restriction will be recorded on the property to ensure those affordable units are maintained as affordable for the full 55-year period. That agreement is recorded prior to building permits being issued. Excuse me.
You have any more other further questions? Sorry. Commissioner Sandoval, any questions?
No, no questions at this time. They've been answered by some other commissioners.
I think actually I have a question, but it's more for the applicant. I think it's more about the nature of the request rather than specific to the staff report. So I think we will go to.
You can open the public hearing at this point.
Yeah. To open, oh, you want Commissioner, Vice Chair Matt, you have a quick comment?
Right. I just realized I haven't done the usual mentioning of ex parte stuff. So I sent out my usual ex parte mention to my email list, and I also went ahead and talked about it a bit with some people I was doing some stuff with on Community Service Day and at a community meeting I was at on Sunday. So I don't think I actually had any replies back or anything. I just more mentioned that it was happening.
Okay, we can now open the public hearing. If the applicant wishes to make a presentation.
Hi, good evening, chairs. I'm the applicant, Brian Beniquid, and a managing member of the LLC that runs the property. As many of you had brought up, it was strictly for the purpose of getting the construction financing. Anyone who is in has performed any type of construction financing, they typically it's an interim loan, which means it's a short-term 2-year or 3-year loan during which period of time construction takes place. I have a long-standing relationship with the senior that's currently there now, a lender called Safe Credit. Actually has several of my properties, has a senior debt on several of my properties, including this one. They also have a construction lending division. So they are the ones that had suggested making a lot split. The lot split's a little bit different from what we originally wanted, which was just splitting off the back, which is vacant, in order to be to conform with the other requirements of the city. We segregated it to the area that you see in parcel A, which is the area that we want to use as the original parcel. And as Chairman Menes had stated, it's for the sole purpose of being able to segregate the existing senior debt, which is still very small in comparison to the overall value of the property, to the parcel. As many of you know, there exist 12 small businesses, including my own, that operate out of there. And they will continue to operate out of there and will be able to support the senior debt that's being segregated to the original parcel, which we're calling parcel A. They would then be allowed to put a new construction loan on the newly created parcel. Part of the logistics that we want to be able to accomplish during this time is during the construction is that my business included and all the other small businesses that are there, that we want to be able to do the construction with as minimal intrusion to our businesses as possible. And so they want to be able to, we're intending to use modular construction with the apartments. We're still figuring out exactly the type of financing we're going to use to do, or construction that we'll use for the office, because it's not really conducive to modular. And these factors all come into play with the financing that we want to segregate to parcel B. During the time that the office building and the newly constructed apartment buildings will have obtained a certificate of occupancy, it is our intention at that time to be able to consolidate the debt once again, so that the new permanent loan would be able to pay off the construction loan, as well as the old debt on the parcel A. And then at that point, the lender and I could encumber both parcels again, or merge both parcels again. But this was originally inspired and instructed by the lender that is looking to do the the construction loan on this, which also happens to be the senior debt that's on there now. So if you have any questions to that, I'm happy to help answer those.
We'll go around. Do we have any, left this time, Commissioner Sandoval, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So my question was just for clarification. So then the splitting of the parcels is to maintain the smaller debt on the smaller one and then get a different loan for the larger one and to fund the construction loan.
Correct.
Thank you.
The construction loans cannot be in second position to existing debt.
Thank you. Thank you. That's all my questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Lamb, Julian. Thank you. Vice Chair Menes.
Sure. So just to make sure that I understand this all properly, you're saying that basically the primary reason why this is being done is because there need to be a lot of short-term loans for the construction, but those short-term loans need to be the ones first in line for priority in case something goes on. So all the older debt needs to get moved somewhere else. And then once the construction is done, all the loans are going to get merged back together into one new larger loan. And the loss might get merged again, then it might not. Am I understanding that right?
Yes, yeah, you nailed it on the head, yeah. Typically construction loans, when they factor them out, they're going to be, especially since this is an income generating property. We've already, I mean, option one is pay off the existing loan, write a check for that cash, which, you know, if I could, I would, but it's easier to save I have a ton of equity on there and income that comes in. It supports a new construction loan with the future value of what would be constructed there. And then the future value would support a loan that would be sufficient to pay off the construction loan and the old debt once a new permanent loan is ready to pay off the newly constructed and renovated project.
But you can't get a permanent loan until something's actually built, if I'm understanding.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there's already a permanent loan there now, which and the structures, including my own business that pay rent, there support the existing senior debt, the 30-year loan that's there. So this is for the sole purpose of being able to obtain construction lending financing.
Okay, I think that clears up my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Banuelos?
This might be a dumb question, but I'm trying to, I understand what you're saying about your senior loan. So in order for it to be financed out later and to get the construction loan now, you're doing that as opposed to paying off the senior loan to get the construction loan.
Correct.
Sometimes construction loans will pay off senior loans. Are probably too big to really take that. Would probably overwhelm it, I'm imagining. But if that's the case, I'm trying to figure out here why you didn't include the existing building as part of the split.
I originally wanted to segregate the original building, but then additional issues came into play that were just part of the laws that went along with the land. And again, I'm not going to get this exactly right, but from what I understood, if we segregated out just the vacant land in the back that's entitled to build the office build out, including the apartments, then the ratio of office to residential would be off of its calculation. But because of the fact that we have existing office there, and based upon the ratio of the existing office and the land, it enables me to put 29 units there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I don't claim to understand that
Yeah.
particular part. Once we started coming down to the brass tacks of what we were trying to accomplish, it was a give and take as far as, well, could we segregate the lot to the parking lot area? So once we started coming through with that, and then I started getting these tentative maps that were done by my civil engineer, which are the ones that were presented here to the city for the presentation, I took those back also to my senior loan and this is what they would like, the city of Pinole. It didn't quite make sense to them as well, but since they're the one who is intending to do the construction loan and we have a long-standing history together, they, like I said, they have several of the loans on other commercial buildings that I own. I work with them regularly in the course of my business when I sell my clients office buildings or apartment buildings, and they'll do the apartment building loan for them. So, you know, I'm in really, really good standing with Safe Credit. So they said, okay, it makes no sense to us to make this little tiny lot this way, but if that's the way the city of Pinole would like to see it, we'll play ball, and that's where we are.
I mean, I can see where down the road doing that, you run into some building code problems with with your addition, because you're slicing through a real property line as opposed to an imaginary one. So it sounds like, although you're saying that, you know, it's already kind of going to be deeded for parking in perpetuity. Your loan company's gambling on, you know, they're seen as a gamble. So they're going to say, well, if something happens, we can always sell that, foreclose, sell that property and do something else with it.
No, not at all. That has nothing to do with it.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no gamble. in order to get a senior loan, they need to have a free and clear lot. Quite frankly, it's possible in the course of all this, I might take the new construction loan and pay off the old loan. But I don't necessarily want to do that because they have some super low interest rate on their now fixed for the next several years. So it actually makes more financial sense to get the construction loan in place first on the vacant lot. And then now when the development is complete and it's eligible for a new permanent 30-year loan, depending on whatever the prevailing interest rates may be at the time, to get a brand new loan to pay off the construction loan and the old loan. But for now, the interest rate on the old loan is great, and the balance is so small that delivering them a free and clear lot with all the full entitlements in place and having the relationship that I have with the bank is something that they're willing to do. Again, the size of the lot, the way that it is it to conform with the requirements of the city, as well as the other requirements of the OPMU designation. And so we have a smaller lot, gonna be the repository for all of the existing senior debt, and a free and clear lot that has all the entitlements in place to allow me to be able to renovate my existing property, deliver all kinds of other opportunities for small businesses, as well as affordable housing and workforce housing for the jobs that will be created in the office.
Okay, thanks. That's all I have.
Commissioner Bender?
No question.
I just have one question, kind of why now? Since it sounds like you had a long-standing relationship with the lending source back when we saw this initially. Why now versus, back then had the lot split then?
There no particular reason. When they went to go, are you referring to when I was applying for the
Entitlements, yeah.
entitlement?
Yeah.
The issue had not necessarily crossed, the issue didn't come up at the time. And so it just made, after we started looking at it and deconstructing how we were going to approach the loan, they made the suggestion of the lot split after the fact. They didn't take into consideration what I was doing with the entitlement. And so after they made the suggestion, I applied for the lot split. There's, as was brought out earlier, the project was entitled last year. I'm in the process of going through all of the construction drawings now. I submitted my grading plan. We're still going through that. And so while we're going through these other aspects, the lot split was brought up, and so here we are. And as I go through the rest of the other construction drawings, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and submit those and go through the process of a final building permit, having the free and clear lot and having the option to exercise a loan that's just encumbering that, which is typically how they like to do construction loans. That's an option. And at the same time, I'm paying down my existing debt while still being able to preserve the great interest rate that I have on it. And I have multiple options, whether I take a construction loan, pay off the old loan, or keep the old loan, just so I have that handy while I'm building out the other thing and then consolidate them all together. So there was no real reason behind why we didn't submit them at the same time. It would have just probably clouded the request for the entitlement even further, and thankfully it didn't.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Shrewd, is there any questions from the public?
I don't see any hands raised online.
The public hearing and then it's closed.
Yeah.
All right, the commission may discuss the item amongst themselves and ask any further questions of staff. I'll go Commissioner Bender. Do you have any final questions or comments?
My first reaction is sort of an unusual request, but with conditions of approval that have been attached by staff regarding the easements and reciprocal easements, I don't have any issues, frankly.
Commissioner Banuelos?
Well, I can see why the lots of the size it is, because you need to have your ways in and out. So that's probably what kind of came, staff probably backed into the size as opposed to going forward with it. So we kind of did it, I'm sure, the reverse way, where instead of just seeing the lots, seeing what's going on around it. Makes sense. I don't have a problem with doing the split. The only thing I want to know is, or I want to ensure, and it sounds like it's already here in place, I'm just kind of saying it again, is that it stays parking. So any kind of change, like if someone wants to put a building there a year later, that should be a pretty massive deal to go through.
I have no intention of selling the, separating the lots. It's strictly for the purpose of obtaining my construction loan.
Yeah, that's fine. But in the future, tomorrow you could have I want to buy your place and you just name your price. Tell me how much you want.
I've
I'll write
had
a
those
check.
offers already. I don't need the
Yeah.
money.
Okay, well, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, so that kind of makes you feel better. Even more. That's my only thing is, that we can make sure that we have that in there, which sounds like you already do. Well, that's all I have.
You're good. Commissioner Vice Chair Menace.
So I want to thank the applicant for their responses to, my questions and questions in general. They answered a lot of the concerns that I have with regards to this lot split. I guess I have sort of a broader question for staff at this point. Is this maybe something worth bringing up with future applicants that may run into a problem like this? Like if they're going to say, we might want to do a lot split like this in the future to make sure that our properties are unencumbered or whatnot. So we don't need to consider it for another project, another year down the line or so on. I know that this is a bit particular to this project, but I suspect it's probably not the only project where the lender has a similar idea.
Yeah, I think we don't need to necessarily suggest this particular strategy, but we could, request, or suggest to applicants that they should consult their construction lenders at this phase as well, just to get any preliminary feedback. So,
Yeah, that was.
If you guys encounter that problem, refer them to me. I am a construction lender. And this was something proposed to me by the bank that I went to for this, and that's how we came up with it. If it'll help.
All right, and yep, that's all my comments.
Commissioner Lamb Julian.
If I could just ask the staff to send me, I guess what was presented before with this project. And then regarding the housing and what the city asks for mixed use, or the requirements are, just so I know.
yeah, we could send that to you. There's also a link in the report if you wanted to get it, but I'll also email you separately.
Commissioner Sandoval.
Thank you. I would also like those documents as possible.
Okay.
No further comments, just, it's a bit of an odd request, but don't see any issues with it. Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, I kind of concur. It is kind of an odd request, but I do want to see the project move forward. And I do want to support your ability to fund the actual project because everybody's putting a lot of work into drawings and due diligence so far. So I don't really have any further questions or comments. That should be anyone might like make a motion in favor or against.
I'll make a motion to approve applicant's request. I don't think there were any things added to that. So that's pretty much it.
Thank you.
So that's basically the resolution 23-05 and all the relevant text attached to it.
Yeah.
All right, I'd second that motion then.
Planning Manager Ham, do I do a quick roll call?
Sure, Commissioner Sandoval,
Yes.
Commissioner Lamb Julian,
Yes.
Commissioner Ben Willis.
Aye.
Commissioner Bender,
Yes.
Vice Chair Menace,
Yes.
Chair Benzuli.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you,
Luck.
Chair.
Next item will be item F, old business. There is none. Next item is G, new business. Item 1, review of the proposed preliminary capital improvement plan for consistency with the general plan. Request is review of the proposed preliminary capital improvement plan CIP for the fiscal year 2023 to 2024 through 2027 to 2028 for consistency with the general plan. Is staff on the
Yeah,
call?
Misha should be online, so there she is. So we can go ahead and unmute her. There we go. All right.
Hi, good evening.
Go ahead, Misha.
Alrighty. I can pull up my presentation. Okay. Hopefully everyone can see my screen. Tonight, I will be talking about our preliminary proposed capital improvement plan for fiscal year 2023-24 through 27-28. So our capital improvement plan is a 5-year plan used to identify and address the city's capital needs. Capital projects are defined as investments that build, replace, or improve a city asset. Our preliminary proposed 5-year CIP includes 32 capital projects and 9 infrastructure assessments. The project categories for these projects are split into facilities, parks, sewer, stormwater, streets and roads. And in the last year or two, we've just added the infrastructure assessments category. So as I mentioned, it's a total of 41 projects, which are split amongst the 32 capital improvements and the 9 infrastructure assessments. But here you can see the split between the projects in the various categories. For example, the streets and roads category has 12 projects, stormwater has 2, 7 facilities, and so on and so forth. So we're here tonight because state law requires that a designated planning agency reviews the CIP to ensure compliance with the general plan. Our city council has designated the planning commission as the planning agency for the city of Pinole and the appropriate authority to review the CIP for consistency with the general plan. The goal tonight is for the planning commission to determine if the projects listed in the capital improvement plan support the goals and policies of the general plan elements. So in the packet that you have with the proposed CIP, it's a little bit different this year. We've actually listed the general plan goals and policies within the CIP document on each project sheet that has a description of the project and then also the plans and policies. And then the plans and policies are further described in the appendix in the CIP. We've also provided a summary matrix that tells you if you're familiar with a project and you'd like to know, but if you want to get more project detail, then the description sheet provides that. So here are the 7 facilities projects that are listed and each project's associated general plan goal and or policy. And as I mentioned, these policies and goals are further described in the appendix of the preliminary proposed CIP. Similarly, here are the 5 parks projects that appear in the preliminary proposed, along with the goals and policies of each of these projects. Here we have our sanitary sewer projects that also have the goals and policies listed. You'll see that if you followed along in past years, many of these projects have carried over. So you might be seeing many of these as repeat projects. You have 2 stormwater projects here, and then about 12 streets and roads projects here. There's a couple listed here, and then you on the next slide. And then lastly, as I mentioned, we have an infrastructure assessment category, which really is either feasibility studies or master plans, more planning level documents that haven't materialized into actual capital projects. But their general plan goals and policies are also listed on this slide. So there's 9 infrastructure assessments. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Vice Chair Menace, do you have any questions?
To start with, I've just got a relatively simple one. I know that the last time we discussed this, City Attorney Bogg mentioned that basically our role and focus in this is purely just looking at compatibility with the general plan, not fiscal feasibility, not impact, not anything else, just whether it falls within the general plan. And I think it's my understanding, but I wanted to ask just to clarify this, that if it meets any component of the general plan that's sufficient to approve it. We would need to make a finding that for whatever reason, a given project would be no part of the general plan to make a finding of disapproval. Is that right?
You can approve this if you find it meets any part of the general plan. You know, it's up to the planning commission to determine compatibility. There are in a general plan often conflicting language in some sections, and so it's possible, you know, that it might be compatible with one and not compatible with other, and you're really looking overall at the general plan. Does it comply with the general plan overall? And so if you feel that it doesn't comply with the general plan, you would want to identify, you know, why it doesn't. So even though it maybe complies with policy A over here, you know, there's policy B and C over here that it's not compatible with.
Okay, so anything along those lines would probably be comments, so I think I can safely say that. Oh, actually, no, that would fall under comments. I'll wait on that.
You'll still comment.
No further questions at the moment, no.
Commissioner Lamb Julian.
So would this be the time to ask a question about grants or no?
Question of staff.
In what way? I mean, yeah, I mean,
I just want to know, it just stated that there is staff looking or actively seeking out grants. I just want to know how many staffers are on that team and just are they looking into just sort of out of the box thinking of philanthropic funding for some of these projects and maybe collaborations for other organizations, maybe union trades, apprenticeship programs that would be able to kind of help get these projects funded and along?
So I can answer that question. As it stands related to grants, all the projects that are listed here, our goal usually, it's not necessarily that we have a dedicated team of people that are strictly looking at grants, but our goal as departments, or even as we work together with cross-functional teams, is to identify opportunities to seek funding for certain projects. For example, we recently completed a local road safety plan, which identified several road safety projects that plan allowed us to have grant ready materials, and it identified funding sources to go after to complete some of those improvements. And so that was kind of the basis there to apply for those grants. So there's a process in which we try to leverage the funding that's already provided to us through our capital budget to seek additional funds. We also have an unfunded project list, which we look to. So that's kind of our guideline for projects that we know are either regulatory needs or staff recommendations. They've been identified through a master plan, which may not be funded yet, but they sit on an unfunded list. So then when an opportunity presents itself, staff is actively pursuing those opportunities and evaluating them.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Sandoval.
No questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Bender.
Just two quick questions. Is there a release date for the active transportation plan this year?
Are you asking about a request for proposals or when the plan will be
When the
complete?
plan will actually be released? Is that?
Oh, okay. So we just initiated our kickoff meeting. The city awarded a contract recently. So that process is in the very preliminary phase. We expect it to take anywhere from 9 to 12 months.
Okay. And the second question, have staff heard back from Caltrans regarding the San Pablo Avenue Bridge project out of curiosity?
Yeah, so staff recently submitted a bridge type selection report to Caltrans, but Caltrans has been a little bit behind with all the agencies that have requested funding through the HBP program, and they have not responded to our request. They, as of late last week, they just said that they're still reviewing the document and it could take several weeks.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Commissioner Banuelos?
Yeah, just following up on that. Has there been any work done that you have to do in terms of railroad easement and access for that bridge? Because, you know, the railroad takes that, you know, all the live long day thing pretty seriously. It could take years to get that from them. Has that anything like that been processed yet?
That's correct. This project involves coordination with BNSF. And we are kind of restricted by their design guidelines as well, because they have the right of way under the bridge. Oh, yes, the project does involve heavy coordination with the railroad.
Yeah, I know that, but has anything been done about that yet? Has that been, or is that
Yes.
something that has to be funded? Still?
No, that's been ongoing in order for us to develop our type selection.
Okay.
Which has been submitted to Caltrans.
Okay, that was just one question I thought of as you were mentioning that, because that's always been a problem with the railroad. So I don't have a whole lot of questions. I'm just going through the list and seeing what was unfunded mainly. And it's kind of like the same old bunch. So I was you know, as usual, curious about why the Ferrer House is still down on the list. They're like that pretty low. But it's, you know, I know it's not a matter of the feasibility of it, or whether it's a matter of people that can't get along fighting over it. So that's a whole other story. I kind of found this whole report a little confusing to read. The order of it. I think putting in all those various things you get normally are separate made it a little bit harder to read. And that's why I was kind of like still rifling through. I looked at it and still rifling through, looking, trying to find it, because you always find more stuff. So I've looked at a lot of these over the years. So that's just my main comment is within organization, it leaves a lot to be desired. So thanks. That's all I have to say.
I'd say two quick questions, and I don't really have page numbers, but I think it's like the part that talks about projects from the adopted fiscal year 2022 to 23 through 2026 to 2025 year capital plan that have not yet been started. It's staff recommends for deferral because they're low priority. It's like page maybe 4 or 5 in. So are those projects, they were on the capital plan and they were deferred, but now they are back in for approval for this year? It's
So
like the
let me
Plum Tree
try
parking lot, the Pocket Park, the Pinole Valley Park and Soccer, yeah.
Yeah, let me try to elaborate on that. So the way the preliminary proposed CIP was developed, we took the 22-20 last year's CIP, and in the beginning of this year, City Council directed us to develop a prioritization methodology for the way we go about prioritizing the projects, as we have limited resources and more projects that then we can complete in 1 year. So the idea was we took the projects that were already underway. Several projects, you know, some projects were removed by council and some were added. And then we had a few new projects that were added by council or because there was a grant. And once that process was completed, we completed a prioritization matrix to kind of rank the projects in their priority. The projects, so there were projects that were already underway, but then there were projects that were scheduled, which we had not initiated yet. So we hadn't begun any work on them because we had several multi-year projects that we were trying to advance. So in terms of trying to balance our resources and the projects that we had to figure out what was kind of our projects that we would initiate in this upcoming fiscal year. So though the projects have moved on to future years in the capital improvement plan, they were not removed. They're still there, but the timing of them has shifted.
Thank you. And I had another question. Oh, on the infrastructure assessment, those are reports or assessments that are typically done this year, or at least started this year?
Yes, there are some that are currently underway, but they are scheduled to all take place within this year.
And if,
And the primary goal of that is to, once we complete these assessments, because the city is developing or incorporating the recommendations into the long-term financial plan, our goal is to have these assessments done so that we can properly budget for these improvements in the future.
okay, so that was kind of my next question. So these assessments would then lead to actual capital improvements versus just an expensed report that would come out.
Yes, and then like I mentioned earlier, for example, one of the assessments was our local road safety plan. The projects that came out of that plan that are currently not funded have been rolled over into the unfunded list. But you know, in terms of doing master plans or doing any of these planning level studies or infrastructure assessments, it helps us budget for those things in the long-term financial plan or so we can find a way to fund those improvements that have been identified.
All right, thank you for your report. Are there any other further questions? I just have one more question. Commissioner.
This is kind of to staff as well. Weren't you guys looking for like a parking study or something like that? Didn't we talk about that like a year ago or something?
Well, we had the Old Town parking study.
Yeah, I thought so.
That's the only one that we've talked about. Most of the others are with the individual projects.
Oh, okay, that's what I was kind of remembering, because there were at least 3, maybe 2 or 3. I know we voted on them like 10 years ago or whatever, but I was just kind of wondering if you'd found them, and I could have missed it, but I didn't see anything about that on the unfunded, unless it is surprisingly funded. Is there anything on that in here?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, I was just wondering, because I know that there are already some. So yeah, as long as you don't have to beat a dead horse a few times, you could probably use one of those and save some money.
Yeah, I mean,
Or update them, of course, there'll be some changes.
Yeah, I mean, the old town study seems like it gets updated about once every 5 years. So there'll be more. So it's already in, like, I think in year 2 right now, because it got adopted, or got the council reviewed it in 2020. So it's due up for probably another couple of years to look at again and come back to see if there are any things. If there are recommendations from the council, those could be entered into the CIP program. That would take a move from the council to move an item from these studies to the CIP.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I was just wondering, because I just realized that we had talked about that. But okay, thanks.
Commissioner Lemchkin.
I'm not sure who this is going to go to. I recently went to the Inflation Reduction Act conference, and I guess to follow up with my question before of possibly reaching out to some of the folks there to maybe save some money, to work to establish a partnership or do a collaboration to kind of fund some of this, since we have more projects than we have monies. Has the staff looked at that?
Yeah, so staff actually will be bringing forth an item to council at the upcoming meeting related to the infrastructure funding and identifying which projects may qualify for different pots of money. So that'll be at the upcoming city council meeting.
Okay, just so I know that they at the conference, they were just saying there's a lot of money out there, just people need to be a little bit more aggressive in thinking out of the box when they're asking for grants and that sort of thing. And people were talking about doing collaborations with other organizations and other counties to be able to support that. Since Pinole's the first community in Contra Costa County to prepare a sustainability element, to really lean into that and lean into just being the 6th most diverse city in California, that we could really kind of lean forward and reach out to our friends and neighbors around to help make it happen and save some money. Thank you.
Are there any further questions or comments? Yeah, Vice Chair Menace.
So I guess I somewhat have a question. It's like I'm a little bit confused about the UF 029. I was under the impression when the local road safety plan went before the council back in April, I think it was, that the signalized intersections would sort of be covered under that, but it looks like UF 029 says they're not funded yet. So do we still consider general plan applicability for unfunded projects in case the council wants to decide to fund them later? Or are we only considering general plan applicability for funded projects because they're funded?
We're only considering for the funded projects.
All right, so that's my question there.
And you should correct me if I'm wrong. If a project goes from unfunded to funded, then we would bring that back to make sure that it's general plan is compatible with the general plan. Am I right on that?
We would not bring it back. The planning commission is making a recommendation based on this and, you know, assuming that it was just a project or two and not a wholesale change. The city council can do that. This is to inform the city council when they get this item before them. So they, you know, they can certainly ask for the planning commission's input on, you know, if they decide to fund an additional project and whether that one project complies, but there wouldn't be a requirement to go back to the planning commission.
Are we looking for a vote or recommendation, or do we?
Yeah, we would need a motion and a motion and a second in the full. Okay.
It would be public comment first, though, I think.
Right.
Oh, are there any public comments?
I don't see any hands raised at the moment.
Oh.
Hey, like over by there, I saw it said like they were gonna build houses over there. Would they be affordable houses or like has that not been met with the developer yet?
It's, I mean, basically there's a 4-lot subdivision. Three of the lots are what we would consider market rate or for sale. One of the houses would be for an affordable, and that would be for for anybody with a median income of 80% of median income.
Are there any other public comment?
No, I don't see any hands raised online.
I think you could make a motion.
Before we go to motion, I do have some comments at this point. So first off, just in general, it seems to me like most of the items, like they have been in past years, you know, are in compliance with the general plan. I'm not saying that anything's out of compliance or so on. I'd suggest that some of the projects flagged by the local roadway safety program are particularly notable for meeting multiple elements of the plan due to the health and safety element, the circulation element, to a lesser extent, the sustainability element. So I think that there wouldn't be any issue if that was going to be a funded thing in the future. And I think that the fact that UF 029 in particular, then to also, you know, UF 028, appreciate seeing the San Pablo Avenue complete streets added on there as separate from UF 016. I'm assuming that the sewer pump project that was removed because it was consolidated with the other sewer projects. If that's not
correct.
Okay, good. And then let's see, safety at unsignalized intersections. I've gotten plenty of comments from people in the community about some of those intersections, in particular, Pinole Valley and Seamus being a particular area of concern. So that probably ties in again to health and safety in particular, as well as circulation, pedestrian safety sort of ties in a bit, probably the active transportation plan, as well as the local road safety stuff. So just wanted to mention that several of the items in the unfunded list, even if they're not strictly under the main area that we're considering, do have parts of the general plan that apply to them that merit their further consideration by various bodies. Thank you.
Mr. Bender.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment. With regards to the various street projects, it looks like the Pinole Smart Signals is going to be the first one out the gate since the others are unfunded at this time. My only concern about that is under the general plan goals and policies, those policies kind of reflect the idea of traffic moving in a very efficient way through or on San Pablo Avenue and Appian. I hope that that project, though, doesn't turn out to be one of these things where it just exacerbates the freeway conditions. That's how I'm being maybe a little hyperbolic, but freeway conditions that people have identified on the arterial streets, namely Appian and San Pablo Avenue. That's my only comment. I mean, yes, it does meet those goals. The general plan goals and policies are cited, but it doesn't say anything in reading what I see in the Pinole Smart Signals, which is coming from Contra Costa Transit Authority. I don't see anything really about pedestrian safety. It just seems to be heavily oriented towards getting the vehicles to move through efficiently and creating less pollution, which is an admirable goal. But I do have some concerns.
I'd like to address that if I may. So that Smart Signals project, as you noted, is led by CCTA. And although it might seem that it is focused a lot on vehicles, part of the project involves detection for pedestrians to improve pedestrian safety. But CCTA is currently formulating a MOU and will be presenting that to cities and providing additional details. They will be presenting to the city council on the project along with the consultants. So I urge you to keep an eye on that project if it is one of interest to you so that you can continue to learn more and your questions can be addressed in detail when that comes up for consideration. And I believe that should happen within the next 2 months.
Chair, thank you so much for that.
Are there, Commissioner, any other comments? Commissioner Banuelos?
No, I'm good.
Commissioner Lan Julian?
Hi, Misha. Question about the facilities slot of projects. Were they also run through the sustainability plan in the general plan to where when they're doing the modernizations of the buildings that they're going to try to be as green as they can? And yeah.
In terms of identifying the goals and policies with the sustainability element, is that your question?
Yes.
I don't believe so because a lot of these projects, with the exception of maybe 2, are new projects, or maybe 1 is just a new project. The goals and policies identified in the past have carried over with the project sheets from previous years. But if that's a desire, we can certainly address those and add them as well.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thanks for that feedback.
We're good. Commissioner Sandoval?
No questions.
Vice Chair Mattis, you have a comment?
Right, sort of a follow-up comment to Commissioner Lam Julian's comment. Even though, say, for example, sustainability goal SE3 isn't necessarily, or policy SE 1.3, enhance the energy efficiency of all city facilities, isn't necessarily mentioned with regards to the various policies listed here. In terms of actually implementing it, the city is still going to be going with those elements, right? It's just not listed here.
That's correct. And as Assistant City Attorney Mock mentioned, there might be additional policies even throughout the general plan that are associated with a project. There may be even more than the ones that are listed here. But this is kind of what staff has identified. If there's a desire for certain projects for us to look at a particular element and see which projects are also in line, if recommendation, we can also do that as well. But I'm not sure if there's a minimum amount of policies that are required for each project. Maybe city attorney can comment on that, but most of these projects that I mentioned have carried over from past years. But if you feel that there's other policies that should be listed for a particular project, please feel free to let staff know and we can certainly incorporate them.
Sure. So I think just commenting wise, at the very least for the energy upgrades policy SC 1.3 seems like it directly applies, enhance the energy efficiency of all city facilities, and doing energy upgrades seems like it ties directly in. Same for roof repairs and replacement, et cetera. So I think maybe when this comes to the city council, add in maybe some of the sustainability element goals and things to that, because I suspect that the council would appreciate being able to see the sustainability impacts of the various projects that they're going to be approving.
Thank you.
Any other further comments?
Let me just make one more comment if I may. I appreciate Commissioner Ramjulu. Sorry, all new. You're making comments regarding grants. Grants, there's two parts of grants: looking for them and then finding someone to do them for you. They're not cheap. So I would suggest that to help support, and you were kind of saying this too, to help support some of these things that that could be found in grants. Maybe there should be a little bag of money somewhere in there that is towards a little grant exploration. Because, you know, the sustainability ones will definitely have grants. Some of the public building restoration, refreshes, that kind of thing, those should have grants. Even things, some of the park stuff should have some grant level, but you need to have someone able to research them and find them, and then you have to find someone that can actually write them. So if there was some, even if it was, you only could do the first part where you just kind of do the research, and then later on I'll do a part two and then in a subsequent CIP where you have put money in to have out of the grants that maybe the council picks out, that would at least kind of get the ball rolling on some of these things. Because a lot of these things, you know, you're years out and we're going to do it again next year and there's going to be more years out. It's kind of like all this capital improvement plan stuff has a half-life. It never goes away. The list gets bigger and seems like less things happen. So if we at least get the ball rolling and get these things in line, they might actually happen, might drag some of these things back on the good list. So that's why I thought of that, just mainly because what you were talking about. So.
I am aware that Commissioner Rupert over at Community Service does have background, and she said there was a program training for grant writers that the city should look into. I do believe she brought it up at 2 city council meetings ago. In addition to the IRA conference, to where they do have grants and they actually were talking about philanthropic monies out there coming down the slide that they showed of the galaxy of money out there coming from the IRA conference and different partnerships for cities to be actively, aggressively looking to think out of the box and not necessarily go through the normal route of looking for grant money, but just to establish partnerships, since it's going to be such a huge push. And if we are already the first city in the county to have a sustainability plan, I think we've got something going for us, but just to look into that other avenue of out of the box thinking to help fund these projects and make them green, and stay in the forefront of this kind of next cycle of what the community is right now. I'm complete.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other further questions or comments? Does anybody want to make a motion to approve the? I didn't really get any actual comments or edits to the plan. Were there any? I don't think there really were. There's more general comments about things. So,
Okay, I'll make the motion to approve a resolution of Planning Commission of the City of Pinole, recommending the City Council of the City of Pinole find that the preliminary proposed capital improvement plan for fiscal years 2023, 2024 through 2027, 2028 is in conformance with the City of Pinole general plan.
I'll second.
Planning Manager Hannah, would take a roll call, please.
Commissioner Sandoval,
Yes.
Commissioner Lamb Julian,
Yes.
Commissioner Bender,
Yes.
Commissioner Banuelos,
Yes.
Vice Chair Menace,
Yes.
Chair Benzuli.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you.
I should read that, read the appeal language. Next item H, City Planners Commission Report. Planning Manager Hannah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a couple of items. One was regarding the Safeway project. I know that was an earlier comment that we had regarding that project. Yeah, there's a new owner of that project. It's no longer owned by Hillsborough Property. It's now owned by Balboa. We're working with them right now on some of the existing entitlements, as well as they're looking at potentially some new entitlements. The old entitlements expire in June of this year. So once that timeline goes by, then all new entitlements will be needed for the project. But we are working with them on different ideas and how they view that project and they view it. So so we're moving forward with them. With the Pinole Shores project that you approved at your last meeting, we're working with the developer to get the plans in. Hopefully they're working on their construction plans right away. They're moving forward. Hopefully we'll have those in by the end of the year. They want to try to actually construct next year. So in the next construction cycle. So they're moving pretty fast and furious. We're still working with Pinole Vista. We've got a couple of things to finalize with them, and they're working on their construction drawings. We hope to have something, from my understanding, late fall is what they're looking at for a 2023 or 2024 construction. Apian Village, as you can see, they demoed the MRI building, and so they're moving forward. They're still moving forward with theirs. We're getting close to permits, at least for the first 3 buildings. So they've submitted some plans. We're reviewing those, and hopefully we'll get those under permit here fairly shortly. Probably most likely by the end of summer is what we're looking at for that project. So, but we've got a few items for them as well to get finalized. So the development that I just wanted to let you know that those developments that you've approved over the last couple of years, they are moving forward, and our building department is looking very scared here in the next year or so, year and a half, because all of those construction build outs will probably take anywhere between 18 months to 24 months. So it's going to be a long 2 years for the building department. Other than that, in terms of future items that are coming to the commission, we have another lot split coming to you in a residential area. We potentially might have a new single family residential project, but it's probably about a month or so out. We've got also a conditional use permit that we're looking for one of the businesses downtown. They want to do some live music. And so that will be coming to you here in the next couple of months. So, so we're moving forward with them. And so, yeah, so there's still, when we're also working at our next meeting, we'll have a calendar for the objective development design standards and get that project rolling. And so we'll be looking to bring the ad hoc design review committee in and get meetings set up and move forward on that project, as well as we're also starting to look at the parklet program and start looking at putting some policies together and some guidelines and start on that process. So, and the ad hoc committee will probably be involved in that as well. So those are the major, and then the last 2 projects we're working on, of course, is the health and safety element, or the health and safety element, and the environmental justice element as part of the housing element package. Those we're looking to bring to you probably, see, we're in almost June now. Hopefully get those to you here in July or August and get those to the council for review as well. So there's still, even though now the development part is now kind of gone by, now here come all the policy documents behind it. So just another cycle. But other than that, unless you have a question on any other project, I'll be happy to answer, or that's all I have right now.
Vice Chair Menace?
Yeah, I've got a quick follow-up question with regards to the design review subcommittee and the Pinole Shores 2 project. I think in the minutes, and as I recall, it was mentioned that the overall the sort of 3D projection and the trees were going to be brought to the design review subcommittee for review. Is there any firmer timeline on when that's going to happen?
The architect right now, yeah, I met with the developer the Tuesday after the meeting. They're getting started on that. I've got a meeting with them tomorrow morning to go over some of what we're looking for. And I've highlighted to them what we did with the BCRE project, kind of give them an idea of what we're looking at. And we've given them 3 locations to look at. So yeah, so the ad hoc committee I'll be bringing those to the ad hoc committee, and we'll be setting up a meeting. So over probably the next couple of meetings, I'll be asking the ad hoc committee to meet. So for times and schedules and all that. So.
All right. And I've also got a report back to make to the commission about the Inflation Reduction Act conference, but that can wait till we're done with this a bit.
Commissioner Lam Julian, question? Your Sandoval?
Thank you, Chair. I did have a question. Was the change of owner for the Safeway project a result of the Kroger Albertsons merger?
No, I mean, they're just 2 separate developers. I mean, they're still negotiating with Safeway. I mean, Safeway's been a proponent here for a lot of years. They're still working with Safeway and looking at different alternatives, which could mean one big building or, multiple buildings. So they're still working with them on that. So it had nothing, at least from our knowledge, we have no idea. And Safeway didn't own the property. They're leasing the property. So but the 2 property owners are now, that's how it changed hands.
There used to be 6 owners at one time.
Right.
That's why nothing ever got done.
Yeah. Now we're down to 1.
I do have a question. Are they sticking with the whole retail thing, or is there any chance of getting housing done?
Commissioner Sandoval, or
Oh, I'm sorry.
further questions?
No further questions.
Okay.
No worries.
Yeah, I was just saying, are they just sticking with the retail?
That they're not sure. I mean, they've done projects with residential components on it. And my guess is that they're doing some analysis on, what they can and can't do for that project. So I think, and the other thing is, I think that they're waiting for the other entitlements to expire so that there's no confusion of what was approved in the past and what they're moving forward on.
Yeah, 'cause that was like a major opportunity site in the previous redo of the
right,
whatever all that was. That was in a special
yes, it still has a high density residential overlay over it. So, and we've talked to them about that. And so they're working with all the property owners within as you know, the Pinole Square is 11.89 acres of the 12.76 acres. There's an additional 3 or 4 acres that they don't own, that Balboa is looking at and meeting with property owners of those properties as well. So, so there's a lot of movement there behind the scenes. It's not very up. And they're not, they haven't updated us on where they're at. And so it's time for, we have them, we try to meet with them at least once every couple of months. And now that the entitlements are getting closer to, they're within 30 days of expiring, they'll be getting a notice basically letting them know about that. So,
it sounds like they're kind of letting it go so they can do what they want to do.
Yeah.
Okay. It could be good.
which everything would come back to the commission. So.
Commissioner Bender? Nothing. You said the parklet is coming back to the ad hoc, or was that approved by the council? Or
Just the framework. The framework was approved by the council based on your recommendations. And so we took that to the council. They made some additional comments, and now they directed us to move forward with kind of like the policy document. So we need to start moving on that. So that's what we're looking. So then now we'll get more formalized and we don't have a schedule on it yet. That's something that Lily and I are gonna have to work on and put a schedule together and get that moving as well.
Will we see that again or as it gets more defined or more?
Yeah, you'll definitely see it again, and you'll probably be making a recommendation to the council as part of the program, and the ad hoc committee will probably be a portion of that as well. So I'm putting together a preliminary schedule for Lily and I to look at to see how we want to proceed with that. So
I forget what the name is, the Field Kmart site. Is that got any traction?
yeah, I mean they're moving forward on their construction drawings right now. In fact, they're looking at doing a lot line or I think a lot line adjustment as part of their project, but just a lot line adjustment, not creating lots or that for access purposes. And they're also going to be putting together their affordable housing agreement. So that's something that we're going to be working on with them as well.
They have an anticipated construction start time or that timeline for that?
They were hoping, like I said, they were hoping to get their plans in, sometime in late fall, like I want to say October, November. It'll probably take a good 4 or 5 months I think they're looking for a spring, summer build, meaning late or probably more summer, fall. I take that back. They're more looking at August of 2024, looking at that, starting that.
Thank you. And then the last project was the kind of old house on the Hercules, the dynamite factory or whatever it was.
Oh, yeah.
Did it ever go forward at all or they moved that?
Yeah,
or-
the council approved a moving permit. And so they're in the process of getting that moved. I don't know if they have an actual date yet. I don't know, Justin, do you have?
They submitted a building permit, so it still needs to complete the building permit
Okay.
review process.
So yeah, so once they finish the review process, then they'll start moving the house over.
That was like last fall.
Yeah, that was fall of 21.
Thank you. I have another question. Thank you, planning manager. Hannah.
Okay. Chair, I also see a hand raised online if you wanted to take the question.
And someone on the public comment, please.
Yeah, so this is from the person with phone number ending in 5748. And you can unmute yourself when you're ready. *6.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Anthony, a longtime Pinole resident of over 40 years, taxpayer. I'd like to ask the planning manager about 3 properties that he hadn't mentioned in a while to give us an update on what's happening. The first property is the old animal shelter on San Pablo Avenue. We understand that property was, or the lease was purchased by a company called Animal Furl Fix It or Low Cost Animal Furl Fix It. There's been a lot of controversy and talk amongst the county supervisors, John Joya office, and at their meetings that it's not in fact a low cost animal feral fix-it clinic, though we need something there. And so they started to get all their permits in order? Are they ready to move in? Are they going to remodel that property? And what's the timeline with that, as well as the other question I had with the what's happening with the property across the street from Pinole Valley High School on Pinole Valley Road, that big corner empty lot next to the storage facility, security storage? Is there some unknown reason why that property hasn't been bid on or offered with the attractiveness of something that we should know about that's going on? Because you would think by now someone would want to try and develop that property. Is it just zoned a certain way? You can't get multiple dwelling unit zoning or something on that property? And lastly, what's happening to the reconstruction of that concrete sidewalk wall on the I-80 Appian Way overpass? I thought that was supposed to be addressed last year and fixed, and it's been broken down with a broken down cross rail of 30 feet long of aluminum to support that the concrete wall there on that overpass, and it's just a bad sight for Pinole amongst the other things with the weeds and everything going on the on-ramps and off-ramps that Caltrans or the city of Pinole can't clean, decide where the property line begins and ends near that aluminum rail with the on-ramps. But we should have that fixed or repaired, or are they waiting for some kind of a bicycle lane or special sidewalk expansion on that overpass? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Okay, yes, the first one I'll answer because I'm not quite sure about the animal shelter. We haven't had any projects regarding the animal shelter come before the city staff. So we're not quite sure where that project is with the county, so bringing it into the city. As of this day, we don't have any applications or development applications to redo that. The second one regarding the property on 2975 Pinole Valley Road. We've had a couple of interests into in that property. However, just agreements between the property owner and the developers haven't become fruition. So it's its own CMU. It's a priority site, and so there hasn't been really any at this point. It's between the property owner and any type of developer that would come forward on that project. So we don't have anything yet on that one. In regards to the I-80 and the bridge, that's all Caltrans. I mean, in most cases, we have no control or right of way in there, even though we use Appian Way as one of our major regional roads of significance. But once you start entering the inner area of the bridge and the off ramps and on ramps, that's all Caltrans. And so that's something I can talk to the public works director about. However, we don't have a lot of control over that. So that's it for those three questions.
Thank you. Item I. Vice Chair Menace.
Before we move on to item I, I'd like to present my report on the Inflation Reduction Act conference. I also attended along with Commissioner Lamb Julian.
You want to do this part of communications?
I think this falls under Commissioner's report, right? Because it says Commissioner's report here. So I figure this would probably be the more appropriate point to have it at.
Okay.
So yeah, basically, I'm not going to go over all 11 pages of notes. I'm just going to pull out some highlights. A big focus of the various grants and projects that are going to be going on with that act that was mentioned by several of the speakers from the Sierra Club, from the Building Decarbonization Coalition, from other entities, is that, building decarbonization is going to be a priority. That apparently, according to 2020 data, buildings generate twice as much nitrogen dioxide as cars in California. In the Bay Area, it was generating 21 tons per day from buildings and 8 tons per day from cars. And that's gas stoves, gas heating. In terms of pricing, 84% of the natural gas we use in California is imported. So that leaves us vulnerable to price shocks. And PG&E apparently supports a natural gas ban statewide. They don't want to build new natural gas pipelines. They can see where things are going just as well as everybody else can. So that's a relevant point to consider. Another point that was brought up was that 95% of existing households and 96% have gas water heating and 96% have gas home heating. So that's sort of a major low-hanging fruit for REACH code improvements. Yeah, there's going to be home electrification rebates coming for households with 150% of area median income or less. Up to $8,000 for a heat pump, total home cap for improvements of $14,000. The exact timeline for that's going to depend on statewide implementation, but we should expect to see it in the first quarter of 2024. So just a heads up to everybody out there. Another thing that was mentioned at the conference was that the cities and sort of city staff and whatnot should do outreach to the contracting community to make sure that there's going to be enough capacity available to actually implement all of the grant funding that's going to be available to the broader community. That's going to come more online in late 2023, early 2024, because it's going to come up pretty quickly and going to be gone pretty quickly for a lot of it. There's some direct tax credits for local governments in particular from the IRS to pay for renewable energy and storage that starts construction before 2025. So that's more of a near-term thing, but something that we want to highlight because it's something that can maybe apply to the city in particular, not just grants going out to businesses or going out to residences that are more typical of most of these projects. One of the major points that was brought up was it's helpful to do region level projects and suggestions because the broader an area that's brought into sort of planning suggestions and projects, the easier it is to get grants, to get funding, to get broader buy-in. If it's just Pinole, it's a little bit more difficult. If it's Pinole and Hercules, it's easier. If it's Contra Costa County as a whole, it's a lot easier, that sort of thing. Let's see. Equity was highlighted as a focus we should be considering in developing the green housing projects. There's a 40% goal in the, I believe, the IRA itself to focusing on impacted and disadvantaged communities. There was some discussion of having higher requirements than that possibly. Let's see. There's a greenhouse gas fund that's going to be $27 billion nationwide, $14 billion as a basis for loans and grants, $6 billion for credit union funding, $7 billion solar for everybody. And that could go to state, local, and tribal funding. So that's potentially a pot of funding that the city might be able to access. All that funding would need to be at least started by September 30th, 2024. So that's on a more narrow timeline. There's an environmental justice block grant program that's $3 billion. Applications are due October of 2023. There's some solutions and suggestions that are at climateaction.ca.gov and some broader resources at business.ca.gov/industries/climate-and-clean-energy. Let's see. There's discussion of the building decarbonization program at the state level. I believe comments on that are due on June 30th. Another note again that residential structures accounted for 90% of Contra Costa County greenhouse gas emissions in 2019. The building electrification process is at the draft completion stage, but it's not completely finished. MC had a presentation on their virtual power plant project. The community college district that was hosting us talked about some of the ways they're trying to do LED projects and their sustainability goals to basically implement sustainability goals through LED and zero net energy goals. Zero net energy is apparently separate from LED. And sometimes it was cheaper to do new build electrics over retrofit. So that's something maybe to consider. Let's see. One thing that was mentioned at one of the workshops, the prioritizing building electrification in impacted communities, was that sometimes heat pumps, if they're not ground source heat pumps, can apparently have greenhouse gas emission leakages. And so the city might want to have trackage of how many times refills need to go in to refill the heat pumps, depending on what exact type of heat pump was installed at a project. I wasn't sure whether the city had any existing sort of requirements built into conditions of approval or ongoing projects as part of like the rental inspection process or things like that. But it definitely seemed like something we'd want to look at as part of the sustainability element and the climate action plan and things linked to that, making sure that we're not making things worse by not following up and making sure that new potential sources of greenhouse gas emissions are being properly monitored. Yeah, there's just a few more at this point. That was one that I definitely wanted to highlight. Let's see. One thing that was noted was that even without a reach code, cities can make improvements to their own buildings. We saw some of that in some of the proposed buildings tonight. one thing that was highlighted was with solar and batteries, there's also a need for a microgrid inverter to make sure that you can shift over when there's a power outage. And I can speak from personal experience that it's definitely worthwhile making sure that you do that, because there was an outage in my neighborhood, and because we had a microgrid inverter on the batteries in my house, we were able to switch over to solar and batteries and have power basically for the duration of that power outage. So microgrid inverters are great. You should get them if you're doing a solar and battery storage project. Let's see. And the other thing that was brought up, and I think Councilmember Martinez Rubin also had some comments on this, but I'd leave it to her to bring those up, were that reach codes don't necessarily need to require full electrification. They can also trigger on renovations over a certain threshold or be more guidelines / consultative. And the final thing is that if the council doesn't adopt a reach code, that the Bay Area Quality Management District rules 9.4 and 9.6 will be phasing out natural gas heat, full home heaters and water heaters over time. And the cost effectiveness review by the CPUC is required for the electrification reach code, but it would be for some more complicated things. And I think that just about covers it.
Thank you, and thanks for attending the program. Address. Commissioner Lam Julian, do you have a couple other comments?
I do. I'm just gonna make it super quick. Commissioner Menace does a really good job of covering all of that. To lift up what he stated. The governor's office and some other really great organizations are just in short saying there's going to be a lot of money available to municipalities, and the deadlines are going to be short, and we should really lean into it. West County Supervisor Joy was there, and he was just saying that West County is really committed, and there's great potential for us to really lean into it and get those dollars, because other people will be paying attention and trying to fight for it as well. I went to 2 workshops and about just making sure the community is educated in how important it is to electrify their homes, since that is the direction that we're all moving into, because it's just a better life choice. And meeting the need for electricians, and a lot of organizations, the unions are really going to be stepping up in regards to electricians and switching over to green energy, that we could partner with them as well to kind of get the information out and they can come look. And to really start that conversation in schools, that we don't need to be waiting to have conversations with high school seniors. We can start in the elementary school level, and just trade jobs are really the backbone of the community. And we just need to remember that when things get wonky, and just really lean into this and aggressively get those grants. I'm complete. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Thank you both for attending that workshop. Does anybody else have any other issue report or any other?
I just had a question from the workshop. Did they talk about infrastructure improvement at all?
Yes, they did.
What-
It was amazing.
Okay. I was just checking because up to this point, everything I've heard all sounds great, but there's no enough power to do it. So there's a plan to do that now. Huh?
There is a plan, and I'm sure Commissioner Menace in his report has detailed notes. I can share this packet that I have of just the different organizations and representatives, and they should be sending us emails with those connections as well, that I would be happy to share with staff to make those connections, so we can really lean into the infrastructure, their plans, what has worked for their organizations, and how to really tailor it to Pinole. So then we stay on the forefront of this, since it would be best for the community.
Well, the reason to throw in some kind of person to look for these things, because otherwise it's going to be going to Oakland, San Francisco, and Berkeley. You know, and all the little towns will get aced out of it because they're going to have the people to do these kind of things.
We just need to make friends with Hercules and El Cervante and just kind of make it a little hamlet. To where I think we can. We just need to lean into our neighbors and make friendships, and we're working collaboratively together and kind of pull together our resources. I think we can.
That's definitely possible.
So I also want to reply a bit to Commissioner Ben Wells' question. I know one of the points that MCE was talking about was also making some adjustments on demand side too. I had some questions for Alexandra McGee, who was the presenter, about, you know, how you're making demand side adjustments. Does that mean just turning off people's appliances and whatnot with the virtual power plant? She says, no, basically the way it works is that ordinarily the MCE can't see behind the smart meter, but can't see, you know, what particular appliances or whatnot are generating particular levels of load, because that's one way to deal with the problem of not enough energy is demand management and load shifting. But with the virtual power plant, what they do is they basically do grants to offset the cost of construction and whatnot, and in return, MCE gets access to that data and they can do load shifting, not load cutoffs necessarily, but like, for example, shifting heating maybe to a slightly different time or car charging to a different time, depending on when power is more abundant or less abundant. So that MCE is doing some direct demand side work along with its ongoing supply side work to make sure there's enough power plants and energy going on. So that's definitely being considered.
I like the sound of that. It sounds more like them telling us what we can use and what we can't use. They should have stopped at the front of the smart meter, but what we do with it should be up to us.
Right. It's not, that was a concern that I had. That's why I made sure to go ahead and talk to Alexandra McGee more in depth after the presentation. I was worried, does that mean you're just going to be able to shut down appliances if there's power or whatnot? And the answer was no, it's actually building up overall grid resilience, so there won't need to be brownouts, A. And B, it's not on we'll shut off your devices when there's demand. It's more like we'll shift demand. So like, for example, if you've got your car plugged in, maybe it'll start charging at like noon instead of charging at 3, you know, like demand shifting on things rather than just hard shutoffs, no shutoffs. They don't want to create the sort of equity issues that would arise from, you know, having lower income communities primarily getting the benefits from the construction, but also then having stuff shut off. So that's not how it's set up to work. And I can send you more information about the power plant if you like.
I'd be more concerned with people that are aged, beginning of losing their conditioning and dying from heat on houses. So they wouldn't have had to worry about that before. There was a lot of problems with that when the brownouts were coming along. It's good that they're thinking about that. With elderly people and people with medical problems, you know, all of a sudden they can't use their machines that are keeping them alive because the power got cut off at their house. You know, I mean, those things take a lot of power, and if they don't know what people are doing inside their houses or why they really need to do it, I don't think we should be giving them the right to shut up anyone off or cutting them back on or even redistribute, like you're saying. There's a lot of stuff that would go in there with redistribution and why and how. So I would be very suspect of some of that stuff. I don't think we need anyone telling you how to turn the lights on or off or not in my house.
And also,
I'm very suspect of that.
And also, I guess the final thing I noticed that it's an opt-in program. If people don't want to take part of the virtual power plant process, they're completely free to, you know, not do it and still stick with the default methodology. It's not like MCE is saying we're going to impose this on everybody.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we have. We have spark plugs at our house that recognize that comes down, and then some of them automatically turn off, but she doesn't turn it back on. It's not like your power shut off to your house. It was, it's a not a mandatory, or it's a voluntary program you can engage in.
In place, if you didn't pay attention and opt out, you automatically were in. So if you weren't paying attention, there was no choice.
Well, no, for the virtual power plant in particular, because of the way that it's set up, like there were significant incentives tied into it, like building an entire house level incentives. So people knew they were opting into it. It wasn't like, say, deep green versus light green where they make a change. Like if you're opting into the virtual power plant, you know you're opting into it. It's not a default opt-out sort of thing. I don't think it
was at the time that we voted in and it was opt-in. I don't need to make a discussion about this, and we can stop now.
Yeah, I'm thinking. Did you, Commissioner Lamb, do you have anything else? Okay. Anybody have any further comments? Okay, we'll move on to item I, communications. There are none currently. Item J, our next meeting will be June 12th, 2023 at 7 PM, and it will be a regular meeting of the Planning Commission. If there's anything else, I will adjourn the meeting.